Hi, I'm Rick Dior, and welcome to this episode of Snare Drum of the Week. And this week we're going to look at a couple of my most prized possessions, well, at least one of them. This is a Sonor Rosewood inside and out phonic snare drum from the late 1970s. They made these from, 78 maybe, all the way into the 80s. This is a very early one, and I got this with my Rosewood kit, which I'll show you in another video. The video might look a little different today because I'm in a different spot. I'm in my other studio up in the North Carolina mountains, and I'm spending a little time up here. And I figured since I keep the drums here for teaching, I do a lot of online teaching here, I might as well show them to you. And you've seen this drum kit in the jazz drum set video that I did several years ago, at least 4 years ago. So I'll reference that in the description. But we're going to talk about the snare drum today. It's a great sounding drum, and this is the deep one. So they made two sizes of these. They made like a 5.75, which is a strange size, I know, and then the 6.5. All right. The 6.5 is by far my favorite. Usually I favor the less deep drums, the 5-inch drums, but this drum is just phenomenal. Probably owing to the really thick shell on these drums. So the rosewood inside and out is just a veneer. Inside is beech. Beech can be a really great sound for drums, very dry. Sonor is known for their beech shells on several of their series. Back when this drum came out, I believe they were starting the Signature series, later on the Highlight series. There's lots of series. In fact, I found an old catalog. Let's grab this. So I was looking around, and this is from when I was a little kid, and I used to just drool over this stuff. You see this Rosewood kit, this is the exact kit I have. And then you see these giant drums here. They were moving into some big drums. And of course, Jack DeJohnette was a famous endorser, always has been, okay? Well known for his Sonor endorsement. So these are all the Phonic series drums, and you see the 5.75 snare there. They don't have the deep one in there. The deeper drum is much more rare than the 5.75. Okay. So I'll put some pictures from this catalog up here so you can see them. Now, one thing about Sonor drums you always have to know is that the tension rods are slotted, which means you need a special key like that. It's got the key slot there. So you can't use a conventional drum key. It just fits in there. Works great, just kind of a pain in the neck. If you lose it, you got to get another one. Don't try to use a screwdriver. You can slip and scratch it. Now, one thing about this drum that's different is that I changed out the rims. You probably noticed that. The rims it came with weren't so great. I have a lot of heavy Gretsch die-cast rims, or hoops, whatever you want to call them. Put them on, made a huge, huge difference in the sound of the drum. It's one of those drums, sometimes it doesn't work, but on this drum it was incredible. So I've kept them on here for the last 20 years or so, all right? So it makes the drum much heavier too. It adds about a pound or two to the weight, as die-cast hoops are heavy. So it's a 10-lug drum, which works fine. 10, 8, doesn't matter to me. Those both work. And I'll give you, I don't have my turntable here, but I'll give you the slow tour here. Now the strainer, which you see here, was a good strainer, not great, a little bit tight. And on the reissue that I have, the 5.75 that I'll show you in a minute, it's super tight, so I hate it. And it's got the adjustment back here, which is great for the snares. Am I touching it? Yes, here it is. Okay. All right, so that's a good thing. And all the Phonic snares had them. It's also got a muffler that I never use, internal muffler. Most drums back then had mufflers. Okay, they didn't start leaving them out until much, much later. So I'll show you underneath, and I'll do a close-up in a minute here. So I'll talk a little about the snares. I always experiment with snares, like the actual physical snares on my drums. I have probably 50 or 60 sets of snares, all kinds. I'm always buying new ones and checking them out. I think that's a big part of a snare drum sound. And the snares that came on the drum were great, but I just always try things. And one day I was just trying some snares, and I had these really cheap Taiwanese crappy snares, so I'll throw them on there. And it was like incredible. For whatever reason, it was magic. So on this drum, I have the cheapest possible snares you can imagine. Just, you know, the $5 snares, all right? Because they just sound good. And if it sounds good, it is good. So I'll show you now close up under the drum. Now the shell, as far as the plies go, I'm not quite sure, but I think it's between 7 and 12. There's a lot of plies here, and they're hard to count because of the veneer. So if you want to count the veneer, it's probably, you know, maybe 11, a 9 ply plus 2. I don't really count that as much as a ply because it's so thin. You know, pretty thin, actually. And then the, yeah, let's see if we can count it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I think it's a 9 ply, pretty sure. But the reissue, I think, was a 12 ply, someone told me. But I am not one to count, you know, those things, all right? It doesn't really matter too much to me. If it sounds good, like I said, it is good. I think the rosewood definitely makes a difference in the sound, though, because rosewood is a hard wood. I know because I use it to make drumsticks. So it's very reflective in there. I used to own a Sonor signature kit, an ebony kit, not the Bubinga, but the ebony, which was even harder. And I did not like it, so I sold it. It was, they were the really deep drums, so it was a big kit. I probably should have kept it because they're worth a fortune now. Had everything, the snare drum, but I could never get them to sound good. And instead, I got a Tama, one of the first exotics kit, which was a Bubinga, but thin shells, and I love that. I still have it. I'll do a separate video on that someday. So I wasn't a fan of that, and even the snare drum wasn't a fan of that, but this snare drum, for whatever reason, sounds great, okay? So let's see if we can get the camera working here. It's an old cell phone, so I can't do too many zooms, but it's not going to be great. So you see the cheap snares there, say made in Taiwan, if you can make that out. And we'll show you the shell. There it is. Okay. Now, the drum does not have any snare beds, as most snares back then, a lot of them didn't have them. I'm not sure how good this is coming out because, like I said, this is my old cell phone that I have up here. And you see the muffler, cheap muffler. Okay, and then we'll turn this over. And I'll show you a few close-ups. I'll show you the badge. And you see that's the serial number. I'm sure you could trace it. 52864. My eyesight's terrible. There's a great website online called Sonor Museum. I've been on there a few times, checked it out. Seems like a nice gentleman who runs it. Watched an interview with him. So that's definitely a good resource for Sonor drums. And I believe some versions of these are on there. So right now I got this Remo. I'll put this away. I got this Remo head. It's an ambassador on here. It's coated. I like coated ambassadors or diplomats. You know, that's pretty much my mainstay. But I have tried other heads, calf heads, fiber skins, skin tone heads on these. They all sound good. No matter what you put on this drum, it sounds great. Okay, so let's get this other drum up here. And I'm going to have to move some stuff. All right, let's talk about this one. So this is a reissue. And when it came out, maybe 12 years ago or so, I said, wow, that's cool. You know, I'm going to buy one so I have the matching snare for this kit. The only problem is the rosewood is much darker. So I'll show you. You can see it, I hope. So obviously that's just going to be the wood being variant, so it doesn't really match the kit, but it's a great sounding drum. I bought 2 of them, and I sold one to a student. And the strainer, this is that tight strainer. It's a little different, okay? It's okay. It's just really, really difficult, you know. And they left out the adjustment in the back, so cheaping out there on us. And these rims, I think they're die cast. These are the original rims that came with it. So I really, really like this drum. And these are the Sonor snares that everybody knows. Let's see if we can do another close-up. Okay. So, yeah, that's what they look like. Okay. The Sonor snares. I'm not sure they looked like that back in the day. I have my originals. I got to find them. I don't think they looked exactly like that. These are the heads that came with it. And this drum, I'm sorry, I messed up. This is a little thinner. Let's see if we can get it there. I believe it's obviously beech in the middle there, but this may be a 7-ply. I'm not sure. But I thought that one was thinner, but this one is a little thinner. Not much. And the same rosewood in and out. Interestingly enough, no muffler. So, you know, they got with the times. Most people don't use internal mufflers anymore. And same thing, let's make sure I'm giving you good information here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Same 10 lugs. Like I said, original rims. And on this drum, I have a fiber skin FT, which I like on this drum. Okay? So if you have one of these, I know they're rare. I see them up for sale every once in a while. It costs you about $1,000 in good shape. This one I've used a lot. I've gigged a lot. And actually the Sonor drum set and that snare, that was my main, one of my main jazz gigging kits for years and years and years. When I moved to North Carolina from New York City, the first week I was in North Carolina, I had a Gretsch kit. It got stolen. It's funny because I hardly ever got anything stolen in New York the whole time I lived there, my whole life. And then I moved to North Carolina, Monroe, North Carolina, actually. We rented a house there, and that's where Ludwig is, you know, where the factory is. And like the first week, someone broke into my car. I figured, oh, it's safe, you know, there's no one around. And yeah, they took my Gretsch drums. And later on, I found them. I'll tell you I'll do a video on this one too, how this happened. But one of my students, about 10 years later, brought in a snare drum to see if I could tune it. And it was my snare drum that had been stolen. So that was a mess. But I never got the drums back. But I did get the Slingerland snare. There was a Buddy Rich with a TDR strainer back from so a guy. Thanks, Jimmy. Very honest guy, good guy, student of mine. Gave it back to me, and I had to prove it, so I showed him pictures and everything. So that was crazy, right? All right. So anyway, off track again, but that's the 5.75. Okay, so we'll start with this drum on the kit, and you'll see these Sonor drums, or most of them, and I'll do a video on those later. And, you know, you'll let me know what you think as always. So we'll be right back. So here we are at the kit. I'll just tell you a little about the recording setup here. It's a much different setup than I have in Charlotte, where I have a giant recording studio. This is a studio I built in the basement of my house up here. And so it's much different, but the room is all wood. It's got a soft ceiling, a hard floor. It's a good sounding room. So I'm using 2 414s AKG overheads. I'm using just a dynamic mic, a 451, 421, sorry. Getting confused. A Sennheiser dynamic mic for my vocal, might capture a little snare, and a D112 AKG for the bass drum. That's it. Nothing's close mic'd at all. You know, I like that room sound. So we'll try the 6.5 drum first. great drum, sounds great for all kinds of styles. It's very loud, but it's also incredibly sensitive. And it's extremely easy to roll on. It's got a great rim shot. A very powerful ringy drum. I will rarely ever muffle this drum, but just so you know what it sounds like, because sometimes people complain about that the drum rings too much, but I like drums that ring, as long as it's a good ring. We'll put a little muffling on here. Still has to pop, but just obviously drier. Okay, so best all around. What are the best all around drums I have? I know a lot of you ask me what would be my only snare drum. This would definitely be in the running. It's not great for all the jazz things that I do, especially I'm playing real heavy now, but for the really light stuff, it's a little bit sometimes overwhelming for that, so I'll play that kind of thing. Now, by overwhelming, what I mean is not loud overwhelming, but the timbre of it doesn't necessarily match a lot of the old or darker cymbals I use. I normally prefer a brass or even a stainless steel mellower drum. Sometimes these really bright, hard wood drums, like a bobinga or like a Zelkova, that kind of wood, or here rosewood, which is very hard wood, will be a little biting, and they don't necessarily match really well with the cymbals. Again, that's just my opinion. Oh, and as far as cymbals go, this is just a mismatch of different things. I have a Meinl. This is a symphony cymbal that I have here that I teach with, a really old A16, and a Dream cymbal. This is an old Dream cymbal, a really old one of the first ones. I don't know how old it is. It's at least 20 years old. So it's a great cymbal, though. You know, it's like, you know, a Wuhan cymbal, really. Okay, and hi-hats are Paiste traditionals. Really good, kind of quiet cymbals. All right, let's put the other drum up here. And I didn't give you the weight, but I would guess, I haven't weighed them, that these are heavy drums, especially with the die-cast tubes. I would say they'd be in about maybe the 12, 13 pound range. So they're heavy, they got some weight. So this drum has a fiber skin head, like I said, on it. It's a little bit darker. And we're gonna take this one up because I had it tuned down for something. Oh, by the way, the tuning for the big drum, it's a G. For this 5.75 on the top I'm talking about, I usually tune it to an A or an A flat. So very close. And they do have a wide tuning range, but not as wide as some of the other drums that I have. The Yamaha drums, as I said in my last video, have the widest tuning range, the Yamaha Maple Customs. So we'll bring this up to around maybe an A flat. Okay. So this drum really pops. I do tune them very different because I have two of them. So rather than try to tune this one too low, I tune it up high when I want that kind of sound. All right, so. This drum has a really good timbali-like effect. So I do use this one on a lot of Latin gigs. It's a good one. It's not too bright, and it's got a nice popping snare drum sound, like I said. All right, so that's the difference between the two drums. I prefer the deeper one. Although this drum is amazing. It's a great sounding snare drum, the Reissue. So I would not hesitate at all if you see one, you got the bread, to pick one up. You will not be sorry. It's a great sounding snare drum. But the deeper one is even better because you can tune it up high. When you tune this one low, it kind of bottoms out a little bit, all right? But the big one, oh geez, heavy. You can tune this one up really high, and we'll do that now before we go. Or low, okay? We'll just tune it a little higher, not much. I don't want to choke it. But it will go get up there. Okay. So I'll play a little, and we'll see you soon.